to BookTube. So it is December 31st, 2018, and my 2018 book review, everything I've read this year, has probably been one of the longest ever. I have actually lived in 3 countries this year, and I had to do everything by parts because I didn't have the luxury of always taking all of the books that I read with me to the next place I went to. So part of my 2018 reading was filmed in Baku, Azerbaijan. Then I was back home in Germany for almost the entire summer before my job here in Saudi Arabia happened. So I did some of my reading year in Germany, and now I'm finishing it here in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Overall, it has been one of the best reading years I've had. I don't even know how many books I've read, but I have a whole bunch of them right here in front of me, and I've only been in Saudi for 4 months. So I've really been into reading lately, and as you guys will see in a second, it shows because I have a lot of books. I'm obviously not going to talk about all of them in this video because it would take much too long. I'm just going to go through and give you guys my star rating. And if you guys have any specific information that you'd like to have as to why I rated these books the way I did, then leave a comment and I will give feedback appropriately. Yes. The one other video that I'm thinking I'm going to film is my theme for 2018 was to read books that have covers that I think are really beautiful. So I might make another video of just talking about all of the books that fell into that theme for this last year. So I hope you guys are interested in that because that will be a video I'll probably post in the near future. Okay, getting right into this because this is probably going to be a super long video as is. I'm going to start with my 1-star reviews and work my way up to my 5 stars. This year, since I've been to Saudi Arabia, I have 2 1-stars. And I'm gonna start with this one because this was the worst book I've read in a really long time, and it is called the Timbuktu Chronicles, and it is written by Anthony Nana Kwamu. I ordered this because one of the things I want to achieve in my life at some point is to see all of the world wonders. Timbuktu is one of the world wonders. So one day on a whim, I was like, I should read a book that takes place in Timbuktu. It was actually really hard to research. This was one of the only books I could find. There was no reviews on it whatsoever, so I really went into it blind. And this book is just a mess. It's really a mess. The writing is incredibly repetitive. I don't know, the author must think we're really stupid because he feels the need to mention the person's name and title and rank and what they do over and over within like one paragraph. And even that I could have forgiven if the storyline wouldn't have just been so ridiculous and weird, and I just had no idea I have no idea what this author was thinking. So it takes place in like the Middle Ages in Mali or in Timbuktu, and I think that alone could have been an interesting principle. But then all of a sudden there was like these fantasy elements, and there was these creatures that lived in like a other dimension from us, and the other dimension was called like Eartholia, and I was like, oh god, Eartholia, really? Like I was just like, this is the lamest name ever. And then it was like how these goblin demons from the other things had to interact with them, and then there was like weird witches, and I don't know, it was just really weird and convoluted, and I just was like, I couldn't figure out what they were trying to do, and I was just like, no. So that was a 1-star. My other 1-star is called Feind. As you can see, I took the dust cover off. You guys probably know by now that I hate dust covers and I hate hardbound, but this never made it to paperback. This book is called Feind by Marius Federspiel. Feind in English is enemy. Again, this was a book that had no reviews. I went into it completely blind. I wanted to read this because I'm always looking for good German literature by people who come from German speaking countries. And if I remember correctly, this man is from Liechtenstein. And that alone drew me into the idea of reading this book, because I was like, oh, I've never read a book by anybody from Liechtenstein. Like, it's a tiny, 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 tiny little country. So, but this to me read a lot like Naked Lunch. I think if you were a fan of Naked Lunch, then am I thinking Naked Lunch? Or yeah, I think of Naked Lunch. And I think if you enjoyed Naked Lunch, then you would probably enjoy this if it was translated into English. For me, this was I couldn't get into Naked Lunch because to me it was just like, okay, obviously this person was just completely high on drugs the whole time. It was completely convoluted and discombobulated, and like there was just no real storyline. And here too, it was just kind of like, what's true, what's fake, what is fantasy, what is actually going on. There was no actual closure to the book. It was just kind of like a big jarble of like ideas that really didn't have a storyline, and I didn't care for it. Okay, going on to my 2 stars. I think a lot of people are going to be shocked by this. Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I actually enjoyed her writing, and I enjoyed probably the first third of this book all right. I wasn't like blown away by it, but I was like, oh, it's all right. For me, it's way too long. I don't think it had to be as long as it was, so that kind of hurt the story for me. And what really, for me, this kind of reminded me again like 50 Shades of Grey, where you have the main woman, like the main female lead, and she's supposed to be a strong woman and a powerful woman and a leader and, you know, a free thinker, and then she has a man, and the man kind of subjugates her, and she allows it and she's okay with it. And I just cannot get into books like that. Like, I just, you know, it just, something inside of me is just bothered by the fact that women are still writing books like this, and that there's actually a following by other women for books like this. Like, there's just something about it that just bothers me. Like, I'm like, you know, come on, people. What century are we living in? Why are we still supporting this kind of ideas? 2 star for me is The Navigator's Touch by Julia Ember, which is I don't know if it's the sequel or companion novel, I guess, to A Mermaid's Kiss. Yeah. I made a video on these two, so I will talk about it now. 2 star, The Stand by Stephen King. I actually plan on doing a video where I just talk about all the Stephen King books I've read. I've actually read quite a few of them. I hate Stephen King. And I keep trying and trying and trying. He's written so many books that are just so iconic and well known and well, you know, people, like, you can ask the regular non-reader and they will tell you, I know Stephen King. Like, they know this name. This is a household name. And I keep going like, he's so famous and he's so well liked. I should be able to get into his writing, but I just can't. He's just a terrible author. I really don't understand how people can get into Stephen King. I think he's literally one of the worst authors out there. So that got a 2 star for me. Made for Love by Alyssa Nutting. This was actually a book I bought because it fell into my beautiful covers. I didn't care for this storyline. Mostly I really did not like the protagonist. I just couldn't get into it. And I also feel like Alyssa Nutting, she added a lot of scandalous writing to the book that to me felt just like she added all this scandal just for the sake of having like getting reactions out of people. Like, I didn't feel like it was necessary. There's books where they write about really horrible things or sad things, and it feels like, okay, this makes sense in the storyline, adds to the storyline, in which case, when it's well done, then it's a joy to read, even if it's something really sad, or it helps. But here I feel like she just kind of glorified a lot of things just to kind of get reactions out of people, and I just wasn't into it. And my last 2-star, I have really, sorry, I got something in my eye. I have really, really, really mixed feelings about this book. So the reason I came about reading this book is I was watching a video by somebody else. I'm sorry, I forget the booktuber whose video I was watching, and they were talking about urban fiction, and I was kind of, I don't think I ever read anything that officially falls into the category of urban fiction. So I was like, urban fiction, best-selling or best written or whatever, and they gave me a list, and this was one of the books on the list, maybe even number 1 on the list, I don't remember. Sorry, I haven't mentioned the name yet. The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Souljah. I have really mixed feelings about this book, because there's some things I really liked. So I have to say I found this book to be very realistic. I really could believe that the characters in this book exist. It's fiction, obviously, but I could really find it believable. The settings are very believable. The scenarios are really believable. These are all things I really enjoyed. But there was 2 things that really turned me off. First of all, the author, Sister Souljah, she wrote herself into the book, and she did it in a way that just felt really, just put me off. Like, it was constantly like, they were cruising down the highway, and then they heard a radio interview by Sister Souljah, the coolest sister ever. And I'm just like, ugh, like, okay, this is your book. You don't have to self-promote within your book. Like, that super turned me off. And the other thing is, the main character is so cringy and so terrible, and like you just hate the main character. And I've read other books where the main character is just really terrible and it doesn't affect the storyline, but in this book, like, the main character is so obnoxious and so terrible. Like, it just made it a struggle to finish this book, because it almost really felt like I was with this person and I had to interact with them and deal with them, and just had this hatred towards who they were. You know, like going into work and having a coworker that you just can't stand, and just makes you go like, oh, I just don't want to go to work because I don't. And like, that was how I felt about this book. Every time I put it down, I was like, oh, I don't want to pick this book up and read about this character. Like, I just hate her. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not a 2. I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. Okay, that's it for my 2 stars. Going into my 3 stars. The Age of Perpetual Light. This is a short essay collection. The idea behind it I thought was pretty interesting, but the execution, some of the short stories were nice and some of them were just like that. And this was one of the books I actually got as part of my theme for 2018. Beautiful covers. Oh, and sorry, and it is by Josh Weil. Weil or Wheel? Weil. Annette Mingels, Was alles war. 3 stars. Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse 5. Again, for these, I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'm already at 14 minutes. If you have questions, let me know. Captive Prince by C.S. Pacat or Pashat. I'm not sure how you say this. I talk about this book in another video, so if you're interested in my ideas on that, you can check out the other video. Red Rising by Pierce Brown. The Seafarer's Kiss by Julie Ember. This is also a book, well, partially because of the theme of having beautiful covers. I think this is a beautiful cover, and because I was really into the idea of this. Everything, Everything by Nicola Yoon. This is probably almost a 2 star for me. yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is on the border of a 2-star. The plot is so dumb and it's so predictable. I mean, I literally was on chapter 2 and I was like, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. I was on chapter 2 and I was like, okay, the mother is pretending that the daughter is sick because of some reason. She's obviously not really sick. I was like, it was so predictable. It was like there was just no weird turn or anything for me. I just was like, ugh, I don't know. But this was also part of my beautiful covers. So that. The Wonder. Emma Donahue, I'm assuming is how you say this last name. Donahue. Sweet Sue's Adventure by Sam Campbell. This is actually, I was cheating and I already started dipping into my 2019 theme, which is books with animals on the cover, animals that I like on the cover. And for a long time growing up, my favorite animal was a skunk. Poison's Kiss by Brianna Shields. You know what? This is probably almost a 4. This is like a 3.5. Not because the writing was overly interesting, but it is a plot and a theme that I've never read about, and I'm always really happy because I am somebody who does a lot of reading. You kind of start seeing plots and themes repeat and repeat and repeat. So when something actually comes along that actually has a completely new plot, it's really enjoyable. It's like, hey, I haven't read this 100 times. So I'm going to give this a 3.5. The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. Let's see this house. The Wrath in the Dawn by Renee Adia, which was also part of my beautiful cover theme for 2018. And Girls of Riyadh by Raja Al-Sanea. And this I got because now I'm living in Riyadh and I wanted to read a book. Every country I've ever moved to, I tried to read a book by somebody who's from that country, about that country. I don't know, it's like a thing that I do. And there's not a lot of books by Saudi people. This being a country that is still very conservative and very, very religious, the majority of the writing is religion based. So there's not a lot of just fiction writing by Saudis, and then even less that's translated in English. This would probably not have been something I would have picked up if I would have had a huge choice, but I didn't. So I picked this up, and it's actually not bad. I do think it is a pretty accurate insight into Saudi culture. It is fluff, but it is insightful at the same time. I don't know if that makes any sense. And the last one in my 3-star, because I'm giving it a 3.5, is Homecoming by Ya Gyasi. Yeah. I'll talk about that more later. Okay, going into my 4-star books. Let's start with this one. The Heretic Queen. This, I think, would be a 3-star read for most people, but I'm really into stories about ancient Egypt and things like that. It's just kind of like one of those time frames that really interest me. So anything that's about ancient Egypt is probably going to be bumped up on its own just because it's taking place there. I actually bought this book online, and online, the cover that they showed me would have fit into my beautiful cover theme, and then this book arrived, and I think this cover is hideous. I, like many booktubers who I watch, we don't like people on the cover. Why are book printing places still doing this? No, I don't know anybody who's like, ooh, I love that cover with that random person standing on it. That doesn't relate to anything. Whoever is responsible for printing books, please stop putting people on the cover. I don't know anybody who finds that pretty. For me, this is a hideous cover now. Even if the woman had just not been in it, this would have been a better cover. I just don't get this random woman in a negligee walking through a temple. This doesn't make any sense. Yeah. 2-star, not 2-star, 4-star, The Ship of Theseus. I did a huge 2-part review of this book because I thought it was so conceptually interesting. Could have been a 5-star read if the author didn't totally mess up the ending. But the ending is incredibly terrible. And actually, maybe it's a 3.5. Maybe it's a 3.5, not even a 4. Finally got around to reading Flowers for Algernon, which is amazing. I think Daniel Keyes. The storyline in itself, I think, is amazing. The thing that I think is the most intriguing about this book is that I think Daniel Keyes must be. Is this guy still alive? Must have been a genius in understanding how. Oh no, it says in the back he died 2014. Okay, he must have been a genius, I think, because for those of you who don't know about this book, it's about somebody who takes a serum and then grows increasingly more intelligent through the course of 6 months or something like that. And the author was smart enough to actually constantly change the voice of the character as he grows in intelligence. And I just think being able to write, to take your own sophistication and dumb it down to write somebody who's very simple and then somebody who's average to somebody who's really intelligent. I'm that alone, I think, shows such intelligence on the author's part. I really enjoyed that. Between the Sea and Stars, maybe a 3.5. I don't think it's worth reading the whole series, but this is a cute little read if you're into mermaids. I read a lot of books about mermaids this last year. I don't know why. Blessing's Bead by Debbie Dahl Edwards. This is one of the few ones where I actually kept the book sleeve, dust cover. I really, really enjoyed this book. Again, this is a book where the plot is new. It takes place with the Inuit people, and I just think that's something you don't read about every day. So it's just really unique and interesting, and it's really insightful. So I definitely recommend this book, but be aware it is out of print, and you would have to order off eBay or something. Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldberg Sloan. This is a middle grade book. As you guys can see, the writing is huge. But I really enjoyed this. I like that this book was, even though it was middle grade, it was very honest. And it wasn't just everything is great, life is amazing, this is my first love. It had nothing to do with a love story, it had nothing to do with a love triangle. It was all about hardship and getting over hardship and just kind of accepting yourself for who you are. And I really, really enjoyed this, and I think this is a great, great, great recommendation if you're looking for something. Okay, and the next one is Julie Berry, All the Truth That's in Me. This falls into, I do think it's a beautiful cover, and it does fall into my beautiful cover theme. But this book, the writing is just okay. I'll be honest. But here again, this is a book where the plot was so unique from anything else I've read before that alone, that's actually what really drew me to it. And spoiler alert, basically, or maybe this is not even a spoiler, this might be right on the first couple pages. The main character, she experiences some violence when she's young, and she has her tongue cut out. And this is back in, I don't even know, I think the 1700s in the US, when all the colonies and a lot of people were still illiterate, and she can't write or anything. She doesn't have any way of communicating with people. And, the struggles that she deals with not being able to communicate and being seen by her community as damaged goods now. So even though she did nothing wrong, they still kind of treat her like a leper. So the plot of this I thought was so unique and so interesting, and it wasn't, yeah, it was a good story. The writing, like I said, the writing is by no means bad, but the writing is just kind of, it's good. But just for the plot alone and the uniqueness of that, I definitely think this is a recommendation, worth a recommendation. Okay, and I have 3 5-star reads since coming to Saudi, and I'll start with my 4.4 yeah, maybe this is a 4.5. Okay, The Illuminaries. As you guys have also probably noticed, like I have this one, I have The Stand, I have The Stand, I have Outlander. So I'm definitely not somebody who is afraid of a big fat one. If I think the story's good, then give it to me, you know. So I think a lot of people are a little bit intimidated by big fat books. I personally am not. I think if a good story is something that I enjoy, and then I enjoy it for however many pages there is, even if there's more than 300, 400, or 500. I watched a lot of reviews by other people about The Illuminaries. Sorry, I didn't say the author. Eleanor Catton? And it was weird because a lot of people were reviewing this book and saying that this book left them really confused, and they, you know, not in a bad way, but they were just like, they couldn't figure out what was going on, and there was too many subplots and all this kind of stuff. Personally, I did not feel that way at all. I think that she is an amazing author. I think that her writing is very clear and it's very beautiful. And it's very sophisticated. I personally like that. I'm not somebody who likes dumbed down writing. This is just me personally. I think reading should be a bit of a challenge. That's, to me, part of the enjoyment of reading, is to kind of challenge your mind. So I had no problem with following the story or who was who and all this kind of stuff. I think she did a really good job of really creating each character in and of themselves, that you could latch onto who they were, and even if for whatever reason your mind wandered for a couple of minutes, you could just by reading a couple of lines know, yeah, that's this character because of the way they're acting, and she's created them so strongly. You knew who all these characters were, and you knew how they would act, and it just really wrapped up, and it made sense. And like, yeah, even though this is a huge book, I mean, I got through it, I think, in 4 days, because I was just like, the storyline is just, oh yeah, keep it coming, it's really good. I don't really talk too much about it because I think this is a book that is more interesting if you don't know that much about the plot ahead of time, because it's kind of a mystery thriller story, but this comes highly recommended. So I'm going to make it a 4.5. My next book, this is definitely a 5, and this already falls into next year's theme, but I don't know why, I was just super into it. I'm really into camels right now. I'm living in Saudi, and I'm seeing camels everywhere, and I think camels are so cute. And so I bought a book, Exiled by Kathleen Carr. Exiled Memoirs of a Camel. I bought this for my reading theme for next year, and the moment it arrived, I just was like, I have to read it. Mostly because it was... If you guys watched the video where I talk about my theme for 2019 about animals, it's very difficult to find books, adult fiction books with animals on the cover. You find a lot of children's books, or you find a lot of books that are just documentaries about this animal, like where they live, where they come from, all this kind of stuff. But to actually read adult fiction with animals on the cover is really hard to find. For me, at least, it was really hard to find. Then on top of it, if you do find it, a lot of times there's an animal on the cover, but it has nothing to do with the storyline. And here, this book is actually written from the camel's perspective. So I was kind of like, oh, this is definitely going to be middle grade. Like, there's no way they're going to have an adult version novel from a camel's perspective. Like, it just doesn't seem like something adults would be into, besides me. But this was written so well. It's so clever. You totally feel like you're inside the head of this camel, and it didn't come across childish or silly or gimmicky. Like, it really kind of carried you along in the novel. And I think the part that made me fall in love with this book the most is the first 3/4 of it were really just steady. It was just kind of like a character driven story. Like, you're kind of like, okay, what's going to happen with this camel next? I think the camel's name was Ali. Ali or Abdullah, one of the two. And you're just kind of fun, and it's just an interesting character study read. Like, nothing's really happening, just kind of like, oh, okay, the camel's going here and the camel's going there, and now this is happening, but no, it's definitely not action or anything. So I kind of just was like, okay, I only have 50 pages left, or not even. I had like 30 pages left, and I was like, okay, this is just going to be a character-driven book, and it's fine, and I like it, and fine. And then the last 30 pages, it has been so long since a book totally caught me off guard. Like, I just was like reading and reading, all of a sudden I was like, what? Wait, what? What just happened? What just happened? And then the next 30 pages were just like bam, bam, bam. And then, like, I'm not going to give it away for those of you guys who are interested in reading it, but I was bawling. I'm not a crier. I've cried probably 5 times in my adult life. But it was so unexpected, and not in a bad way where you're like, what? Why are you doing this now? It doesn't fit. Like, it fit to the story, but it was so sad. I just was like, oh my god. Oh my god, what just happened? Like, how did this happen? I didn't see this coming at all. And I just was like, oh, I love it. Super recommend. And the last book is the book I just finished. The last book I just finished, and it is called Purge by Sophie Oksanen. Maybe this is a 4.52. This is probably my only 5-star, full-on 5-star. This is probably a 4.52. This is a storyline about Soviet Union times, and right around the time when the Soviet Union fell apart. And this takes place in Estonia, which is, again, a part of the world I don't think we read about very often, Kind of like with movies, everything takes place in New York or LA or London. It's so rare to pick up a book that takes place in some random place, and that's something I'm always drawn to when something for a change doesn't take place in those same 5 or 6 iconic cities that everything seems to take place in. So I was really drawn to the fact that it takes place in Estonia. It's also a very, very, very demented book in parts, and very chilling. Like, some of the things that happen in here are like, whoa. Which is one of the things I am also drawn to. I generally like melancholy reading. So it had all like the little parts that I personally, and the writing is amazing. So these are all things I think I definitely really highly recommend it. I think for most people this is actually going to be a 5-star read. The only reason I bumped down half a star is this book is written in the 2 people perspective. Like, it goes from the one main character to the other main character, which is not a bad thing, but to me this is a thing that I feel is very dated. I think maybe in the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of books were being published where you have this, it's the one sister's perspective and the other sister's perspective, or it's the boyfriend's perspective and the girlfriend's perspective. And for me, this is just very dated. And I mean, to be fair, I think this book was published in the early 2000s. No, not that early, 2008. So that's probably why this was written in this way, because that was still really the style back then. But I'm just kind of over that style. I don't find it that interesting, this constant jumping back and forth between characters. perspectives. It's okay to jump back and forth between characters, but I'm not really that interested in jumping back and forth between perspectives, like written from their perspective. Okay, so that was 2018. I have no idea how many books I read this year. I could probably go back and I don't even know how I'm gonna upload this because I have like 5 or 6 videos all about my reading for 2018. We'll see how I figure out how to do it. But I know there was many. I didn't even count how many. I just told you guys now. But sorry, this has been a really long video. But hopefully you guys still found it entertaining. If you have any comments, feedbacks, book recommendations, excuse me, of course, leave them. If you want to know more specifically why I rated a book the way I did, or if you disagree, or whatever, that of course you can also leave in the comments. And yeah, that's it. Happy New Year. Bye.